welcome to the MSDW Podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MSDynamicsWorld.com. Today we chat with Bob McAdam, program manager for GPUG and organizer of this year's GPUG Amplify event. Amplify is in its second year, and it's one of the few user-facing events of the spring. With events like Convergence now long gone, we talk about the Dynamics GP user experience, the new competitive landscape for GP partners, the event season, and how Microsoft is adapting its stance on business solutions amid so much other change at the company. Hey, Bob McAdam, thanks for joining us today.
Jason, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Well, I guess to start by saying the GP event landscape for dynamic communities is firming up right now, and I wanted to get a little update from you on that, right? Got one that's only a month away.
I know it seems hard to believe. Yes, the GP event landscape is cranking up here quickly, and the first stop on the tour this year is GPUG Amplify out in Anaheim the week of March 20th.
Yeah, and maybe we should step back and maybe give the full landscape first, to sort of paint the broad picture of what's left for the year. Like you said, the GPUG Amplify in mid to late March. We've also got GP Tech Conference.
That's right.
Which is a brand new, newly named, reimagined conference. Not to pull out an old term there, but that's the one that's going to be in Fargo in August.
Yes, early August, no snow.
Right, lovely, and a good slot between other mainstay events, I think.
Yes, exactly.
It's later than WPC, now Inspire, and it's earlier than several other things in the fall.
Right, the crazy fall, right.
Yeah, the fall with other Dynamics product events and Summit, of course, in the fall as well. So yeah, probably a good timing and probably a nice time to be in Fargo. So we got sort of those three. Those are sort of the three main things that DCI has planned for the GP community for the year. And Amplify is the first one. So this is the second time you're hosting Amplify.
That's right. This is the second iteration of GPUG Amplify. We're working again with Microsoft. Convergence, the last one, was March of 2015. Sad to see it go. So Envision came in and disrupted the Dynamics event space last year. So my friend Pam Michalek, whom we all know is the Dynamics GP product marketing director there in Fargo, came knocking on our door last year and said, I've got Dynamics GP 2016 code dropping May 1st, and we won't be doing any SMB related items at Envision. So how about we create an event and make it GP only and give us an opportunity to show off what's coming with the new code. And of course, Andy Hafer, our CEO, said, sure, why not? And next thing you know, we're trying to pull together the inaugural GPUG Amplify in 3.5 months. And honestly, we had a lot of success. Event planning can be quite strenuous. And when your runway is only 3.5 months long and you're entertaining almost 500 people, it gets pretty challenging.
You guys must be pros at this point in all those. I mean, you've been a part of, must be dozens and dozens of conference events at this point. Nevertheless, that's a short runway.
Yeah, it is. But we pinged a lot of our audience in Anaheim last year, and the things that came out were quite evident. They liked the fact that it was GP only, going back to the old Great Plains Convergence days, a little nostalgia there. And they liked the fact that there was a smaller event. We had under 500 people, and we're going to keep it at that this year as well. So we're back at the Anaheim Marriott, same spot as last year. This time it's the week of March 19th, not waiting until the end of May. Last year was a little too close to the Memorial Day holiday. And this time the focus is not so much on new GP code, which doesn't arrive this year until Q4, but rather trying to corral decision makers in the space to spend some time learning GP around reporting, some general Dynamics GP sessions, and some leadership and executive sessions as well. We're going to take an hour on Tuesday and break up into industries and do roundtables as well. So I'm kind of excited to try a couple new things and maybe shift gears away, at least somewhat, from what we do with our flagship event, GPUG Summit, each fall.
Okay. And this one's really geared, it looks like there's two different parts of this event. One's really focused on users and some of these ways that they might want to think about their solutions. But then there's also a whole segment of this event that's geared toward partners. And that's a brand new for this particular event, right?
That's right. We decided in the wintertime that we needed to carve off the sales and marketing portion of what was once known as Reimagine and plop them on the front end of GPUG Amplify with the thinking that a lot of sales and marketing resources end up at end user events anyway to work with the customers. So the Microsoft campus in Fargo, as nice as it is, only has so much room. So we've kind of slimmed down, reimagined. We've renamed it to the Dynamics GP Tech Conference, and that will be for consulting and development resources only. So the sales and marketing folks who spent the last 3 summers in Fargo will have their day on March 20th just for them, with sessions that are out on our website at gpugamplify.com. They'll have their day Monday, March 20th, and then later that evening, we will formally kick off GPUG Amplify, allow the customers in, and get that event started for the next 2 full days.
Yeah, and I was looking at the list of sessions for that partner pre-conference day, and it's a lot of competitive themes, winning business against some of the other sort of well-known names in the space.
Yep.
Is that coming from, would you say a lot of that material is coming from partners? Or I know Microsoft did some hires last year for on the sales side for related to ERP, SMB, GP specifically, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it coming from both of those sides, or is it more driven by one?
It's coming from both of those sides, but I'm going to take a little bit of credit myself because, doing the podcast that I do, I've learned a great deal and met a lot of people in competing spaces. And let's face it, if a company that's running Dynamics GP on premises decides that, yes, they're ready to move their business to the cloud, the options that are in front of them are expanded automatically. So names like NetSuite and Intact and Acumatica now enter the conversation where they never would have before because they were running Dynamics GP on SQL Server on premises, and it was never a thought around cloud. So I talked to some of the partners and I'm like, we need to call out the competition by name and make sure that decision makers who are getting ready to move to the cloud, because they've determined that, yes, it's not a fad, are aware of what the possibilities are and why staying with Dynamics GP in the cloud, be it private or on Azure, works for them. So we've got sessions that talk about selling against those competitors and getting ready to put your business in the cloud and deploying the web client so you get a full cloud experience with Dynamics GP, and you're not having to retrain everyone or migrate your data from one ERP to another.
Do you have any idea how many partners that sell GP also sell one of those 3 products as well, NetSuite, Acumatica, or Intact? I mean, I ask because I have to think it's a good percentage sells one of those things too, right? Which would make for an interesting conversation in a session like that.
Oh, yeah, no question. I would say that a majority of Dynamics partners probably sell one or more of those 3. It just gives them more diversity in what it is that they're selling.
Yeah. It really puts pressure on Microsoft to up their game, I would think, to give these companies the support that they're looking for to stick with the Dynamics offering when they find themselves in those scenarios with their clients.
Yeah, and it seems like that scenario comes up a lot. We've seen lots of code releases from Microsoft around Dynamics GP. There were like half a dozen over a 4-year period. So people are kind of being forced to get their systems upgraded. If they're on older versions, they need to get going onto the new stuff. And the new versions offer different possibilities. And there's lots of talk about cloud at every event you go to, no matter what it is. So I wanted some of the partners who are really skilled at selling and competing to really talk about the competition directly and help partners, deal with this environment they find themselves in.
Sure, that makes sense. I would imagine that some of the key cloud hosting service providers are probably more key in a lot of conversations this year than they've ever been before when it comes to a company that's either, two of the sessions that caught my eye. One was when your customer says, I'm going to dump Dynamics GP, and then the other one, competing against some of those other ones, we just beating NetSuite, Acumatica, Intact. Those would be I would think, almost every VAR has to have one of those cloud hosting providers on speed dial to get in with them on nearly any of those opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm, no question. And Pam Michalik at Microsoft has really done a good job in spotlighting 3 cloud hosting partners at regularly at partner events for Dynamics GP, so that partners know that these firms have mastered GP on Azure, and if you're ready to go cloud, you now have a choice, and they're all good at what they do, and you can begin coordinating with them and planning with them to get your partners, or to get your customers rather, into the cloud without abandoning the system your end users have been leveraging for a long time.
Do you think there's anything that partners are going to go to that pre-event day really looking to hear? I mean, in thinking back, I was at Reimagine last year. That was what, in September?
It was in, mid to late September.
Yeah, so what, 5 months ago or so, 6 months ago now. So
Mm-hmm.
not that far back, and they
Right.
certainly had a lot of things they wanted to talk about with Microsoft. Do you think any of that's changed? Will have changed in those 6 months that have gone by?
Well, the one thing that's different versus last September is that Dynamics 365 is now available, whereas in September, we offered sessions around Project Madeira, the former, the project name for Dynamics 365 Business Edition, so that partners could at least see what was coming and get their questions out in the open without customers being around, and of course, vent if they wanted to. So I kind of felt like Fargo was the right place to do that. So now Dynamics 365 is out and it's available, and, people's questions are different. Perhaps they had their head in their sand before, perhaps they were ready to meet it head on, but their questions now that it's been out, and we're going to probably see some changes or some improvements like anything else. That to me is a much different landscape than what we had in September. So I imagine that their questions will also be more robust, and they're just plain different than they were back when it was only a project.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I was listening to your one of your recent podcasts where you and the team sort of were wondering whether 365 for financials is selling at all. And it was funny because I'd heard that same question come up from other folks in conversation recently. I had heard, I'll tell you what I've heard, that it is in fact selling, at least it's not a zero. And, so I've heard from a few partners who have had a few customers get onto it and are, I think paying for it, but I don't know the number yet. I'm wondering if you'd heard, since you kind of put out that request from anyone else.
As of now, and my podcasting partner, Todd McDaniel, he's the one that's really gunning to find somebody who's
Okay.
leveraged it. But we haven't heard anyone come back to us and say, yeah, we're using it, or we just got going on it. I don't doubt that somebody's paying for it. Certainly, the CRM pieces that aren't available just yet in Dynamics 365 Business Edition probably aren't helping.
Oh,
I hear there's going to be a soft launch sometime this summer, probably in June, when those pieces are available.
Yeah, that's got to be causing such heartburn for, I would think first for the CRM focused partners, because they don't have that thing to sell. It's just this sort of
Exactly.
void sitting there where they kind of have to tell people to wait, not buy anything, or go for the enterprise level.
Mm-hmm. Which is,
And
which is more expensive.
right, more expensive, and also doesn't align with the 365 for financials. It's just
Right.
not, they sort of coexist, but not like in parallel. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
presumably the SMB side will have a nice story to tell with the financials, I would think.
Yeah, and it just won't be as robust. It's designed for a smaller entity, period.
Yeah, yeah. So the price point and the sort of the fit for those same prospects that's I'm sure it can't come soon enough for folks who actually want to sell them together. But sorry, I get a little off track here. But yeah. So I think going back to the GP side, I mean, it's fair to say there's really very partners are probably interested, customers. I mean, have you ever heard of a GP customer who expressed much interest in the 365 financials at this point?
At this point, I really haven't. I mean,
Yeah,
most GP customers that I work with who are members of GPUG are, have been on their system a while. They've spent time and effort customizing it and making it work the way their processes need it to. And, if someone starts talking Dynamics 365 Business Edition, they're more likely to try and pivot the conversation to, when is this piece of functionality that I've been waiting for going to come out? Or when can I expect this functionality to be improved that I'm using now that I like? So
yeah.
I really don't see them focusing on that. I really see them focused on the next version or what they can do next in the arena they've been working in all this time.
So on the Microsoft side at the Amplify event, Pam Michalek, is she the sort of the lead voice of Microsoft, representing Microsoft at this event?
Yes, she is, but she's bringing a support desk with her, so people who are showing up at GPUG Amplify attendees can get some support on site while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And She's going to be the main person, although AJ, her counterpart in sales, will also be there primarily on Monday for the partner event to speak to partners. But yeah, there will be quite a few Microsoft people there. There will be a few presenters that Dynamics GP end users are accustomed to seeing. Teresa Nisler, Jen Rands, Jody Christensen, folks like that that are regular folks at GPUG Summit. So they're going to come to California and show off some new stuff and talk Power BI integration and things like that.
Right, right. Okay. And so we've got partners, we've got, well, I guess 2 days dedicated to customers.
Right.
I would think a lot of folks have been updated on what's new in GP 2016, 2016 R2. But is this sort of the timing when you think to a new release? Is this sort of the timing when existing customers really start looking seriously at an upgrade to the latest release now that it's been, I don't know, 4 to 6 months out?
Yeah, I would think so. GP 2016 R2 was released December 1st, so it's 2.5 months old or so. But, the cadence has been so quick the past few years that there hasn't really been a lot of time for service packs 1, 2, 3, before the next release comes out. So I think people that have been putting upgrades off for whatever reason are hopefully seeing the cadence slow down, get an opportunity to play catch up with their partner, because of course all upgrades should be done with your partner in tow, helping you out and managing that. So I think most are going to play catch up now. And then when GP 2018 arrives in Q4 of this year, at least that's what we've been told, people will have an opportunity to review the new functionality that's coming and decide if they want to make that jump again. I guess we're just going to see a release once a year instead of every 6 months, which I think most people welcome.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of fatigue with the 6 month. I don't know anyone who's able to keep up. I never heard from anyone who was able to keep up with that.
No, not at all. Whether you're a developer or a consultant or an end user, it
Yeah, it
comes
was very
fast.
aggressive. It was very aggressive for us. I think ISVs were the least happy, just with trying to keep that kind of cadence up and keep their products current.
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool. So Amplify, there's educational content, there's some industry specific discussions and sessions. It's really going to differ. I guess you feel like you're really starting to differentiate that from now that you have a technical conference and sort of a more, I guess, more functional based event like this.
Yes. GPUG Amplify has really good content. Some of the things that were very popular at GPUG Summit we're bringing in again for those that missed out or couldn't get into a room. We're going to do industry roundtables on Tuesday afternoon. We're going to focus a lot on reporting because that's always a hot topic. And honestly, with GPUG Summit, I put together a planning committee of end users and partners, and we sift through the gigantic bucket of ideas that come in from the community, and the end users help mold the event itself. It's definitely end user driven. Yet with GPUG Amplify, it's a smaller event. It's only a couple of days. You're not going to be out of the office for a week. And yours truly gets to have a hand in the topics that are selected and the speakers that go along with those topics. I mean, there are only so many session rooms going on at one time. We have 5 session rooms, not 15, and we have 2 days, not 3.5. So that means I get to spend some time kind of massaging this event on my own as general manager. And I've got some really solid names of people that are going to be speaking at GPUG Amplify, the ones you want to hear from, the Belinda Allens, Mark Polino, Amber Bell, David Eichner, Mariano Gomez, Leslie Vale. I mean, the list of home run hitters that I don't have to ask twice, quite honestly, to speak at GPUG Amplify is lengthy. And the names that I just rattled off the top of my head are only some of who's going to be there. So it's going to be a very good high-end show, but kind of slimmed down to 2 days and Monday night general session opening. So I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about the content that we're going to cover because we're really hitting the hot spots in a couple of days' time with people whose strengths are really in the areas where they've been placed as far as speakers go.
Right. And again, as we said at the beginning, it's a 3 event structure now. Definitely a changing event landscape here as DCI I think has adjusted and Microsoft has adjusted what they do, which is, boy, I mean, they almost do nothing themselves
Nothing.
anymore
You're
that's
right.
dynamics related. I mean, there's you guys, and then there's obviously a few other events from different associations and whatnot that they sort of participate in, but really don't own any of it. So I think, in a way that might be good because other organizations like you guys can be more responsive in some ways. But boy, it's still important to see that Microsoft face, I think, at these kinds of
Oh,
things.
no question. But I think your point's well taken. Microsoft really, Envision's kind of been folded over to the Ignite space, so they're going to run those two events concurrently. And Inspire's in DC, I think, in July. And of course, Build is in Seattle in the springtime. But they really don't do many, if any, end user focused events any longer. And, think about this. GPUG Amplify is the only Microsoft Dynamics end user event in Q1 of this year, which is really hard to believe when you think about 19 iterations of Great Plains Convergence or Microsoft Convergence, now just poof, gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Who would have thought we would ever be saying that,
Well, it's such a funny transition time. I mean, so what else is there? There's also the Dynamics AX, or what is it next called? Dynamics 365 Tech
Dynamics
Conference, which is
365 Tech Conference, but that's geared more for partners.
just,
Yeah,
okay, more for partners or
right.
maybe some companies with a lot of development resources, perhaps.
Exactly.
And also, it's really just AX, right?
That's right. We're not really doing
Naming
much else there except
365.
AX.
Yeah, boy, that 365 naming, they've got to
Right.
subclassing that more clearly. But boy,
Explaining
there's
it
all
more
sorts of.
thoroughly. You're right.
Yeah, it is AX specific as opposed to, this Dynamics 365 ideas site, which is Dynamics 365 CRM ideas site. Sorry, don't mean to gripe here, but yeah, the naming continues to be a challenge
Yes, agreed.
for Microsoft. But yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw in 2018, Microsoft for their part doing something even different than they're doing this year with 365 and the event space. If they've really got all the components, really humming and they've got good, user traction on getting companies onto 365. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe they'll adjust again to what they're thinking of a year from this spring.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really is striking to look at how little is really planned by Microsoft this spring.
Yeah, especially Q1. I mean, we've always had something going on, and now
Yeah,
outside of this 500-person event in Anaheim the week of March 20th, there's nothing around Dynamics for end users. It's
yeah, yeah.
strange, but true.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it'll change the fall too. I mean, it'll make the autumn season, I don't know, maybe more hectic or maybe just more important for people who didn't have something that they, booked travel on and
Hmm.
booked time out of the office on in the spring. So that'll be an interesting sort of knock-on effect, perhaps.
The fall is certainly a busy event time, almost too busy at times,
Yep.
and this year will be no exception.
All right. Well, I guess the one user event well, it's not GP related. There's DCI. You have Summit EMEA, which is just a month away, and that will be for users, but just not North American, just not
That's right.
North American focus. And that's been another. I mean, that's a whole other area that's been a little neglected in the last 12 to 18 months. The European user community
Hmm.
has been a little without its real event schedule either. So I think that's a good addition there to sort of fill in that gap that Microsoft also left.
Yeah, Microsoft did Convergence in Europe, but they really weren't consistent with it. They would do it one year and then maybe not the next, or they would do it 2 years in a row and skip a year. So
I was at the last Convergence that they did, and now I'm blanking actually. Was it just a year ago, or was it a little? Maybe it
I
was
think
just
it
a year
was
ago.
2 years ago, I
Was it
think.
2 years ago? Oh
Yeah,
man.
I'm
Um,
losing track.
and it was a it was a solid event. I remember. I think most people were pretty surprised that they decided not to continue with it because it seemed like it was a growing event with some momentum. But
Yeah, I recall very specifically after Convergence 2013, I think it was in New Orleans, where they had a super big crowd and Kirill was really excited. And that's when they said, wow, we have so much momentum around this event in North America. We need to go back
hmm
to Europe and do it again. I remember that specifically. So, and then here it is a couple years later, and now neither one of them exists any longer.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a changing landscape. I think That's why I predict it'll be even slightly different in some way next year. But events are I think, still something to keep that I certainly keep an eye on. So appreciate you taking the time to come in and chat about this one. We'll definitely be keeping our eyes open for it and see
All
what comes
right.
out of
Well,
it.
hey, thanks for having me again today, Jason. Look forward to hopefully see you out there in Anaheim the week of March 19th for GPUG Amplify 2017.
Thanks, Bob.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the MSDW Podcast. If you'd like to be on the podcast or have a comment, drop us a line. Again, I'm Jason Gumpert. You can reach me by email at jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World signing off.